Hi, Akil here from Inside Scan, and today's video I'll be looking at capacity and competence and how these two ideas can be used when dealing with medical ethics questions. For those who don't know me, my name is Akil. I'm a first year medical student from Northern Ireland studying at King's College London. So in this next video series I'll be looking at the pillars of medical ethics. And these pillars should be the guiding principles for you to follow at interviews and throughout your career when faced with a medical ethics scenario. It's important to remember that medicine is a mix between science and humanity, and a good doctor will need elements of both disciplines in providing the best possible care to their patients. And a key piece of advice as well to bear in mind when dealing with ethics questions is that the real big thing about ethics questions is about developing a critical way of thinking, and this is much more important than what you actually say. For a lot of these questions, there is not necessarily a right answer. The interviewers are more interested to see your thought process on how you answer this question, the different perspectives you see. So there are 4 pillars of medical ethics, and these are autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. There's also a few other ethical ideas to be aware about, and I'll be giving a few mock examples on how to use these in future videos. Another key idea to be aware about when dealing with ethics scenarios is that if you were to make a decision as a doctor and medical student in this scenario, would you be able to defend this decision in court? So today's video, as I said, is not necessarily focusing on a specific pillar of medical ethics, but I'm looking at the ideas of capacity and competence. They are very important. Despite not being a pillar of medical ethics, they are still very important when dealing with ethical scenarios. And they are, however, intimately linked to the first pillar of medical ethics, which is autonomy. And if you want to find out more about autonomy, please check out my other video. So capacity. Capacity is the ability of a patient to make an informed decision. So this basically means the patient understands the details of the treatment, the advantages and disadvantages of the treatment, and any alternatives to the treatment recommended by the doctor. And this idea of capacity, whether the patient has capacity to make the decision, is assessed by the doctor. So the legal test for capacity consists of 2 parts. The diagnostic part, so whether the patient has a condition where they're unable to make a decision by themselves, and the functional part. If so, does this mean they're unable to make a decision about this particular matter as a result of this condition by themselves and communicate it effectively to the healthcare team around them? The Mental Health Capacity of 2005 defines a competent patient as one who's able to make a decision by themselves. So a person can understand and retain the information relevant to the decision, weigh the information as part of the process of making the decision, and then communicate this decision to the healthcare team. So as you can see, both capacity and competence go hand in hand, but a key thing to remember about competence is that this is assessed by a judge in court. And it's very important to be aware of these 2 principles when dealing with ethical interview questions, such as whether a patient refuses to consent to life-saving treatment, should you go ahead and treat the patient anyway? And it's important to be aware of these 2 ideas, as this ethical scenario as well may involve both a doctor and a judge in court. So a key takeaway message is that the patient can have capacity and competence in one scenario, but not in a different scenario. Capacity and competence are situation dependent. So for example, a patient may have capacity to give consent to a decision on having their blood pressure taken, but not necessarily be able to give consent for a major operation. And I'll get a bit more into the intricacies of this sort of constraint when dealing with Fraser-Gillett guidelines in a later video. So basically that's a rundown on capacity and competence. They're both very closely linked, and it's important to be aware about when dealing with ethical questions. Thank you very much for listening. Please like and share and subscribe to the channel, and please follow at the Inside Scan on Twitter and Instagram. Best of luck with your application, and keep an eye out on future videos.